Greetings, night owls and brave listeners. Today we're going to dive into something dark. Something that shouldn't be spoken out loud. But hey, you came here to scare. So here we go.
The House Where Shadows Whisper, You'll Never See It Coming. Part 1, The Warmth of Routine. The Thompson house on Maple Street was a beacon of ordinary, its 2 stories filled with the hum of family life. John Thompson, a high school math teacher with a penchant for corny jokes, woke at 6 a.m., his alarm a jarring buzz that pulled him from dreams of quadratic equations. He shuffled downstairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes, to brew coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Sarah, his wife, a nurse with a knack for keeping the chaos in check, joined him by 6:30, her apron already dusted with flour as she flipped pancakes. Their kids, 12-year-old Emily and 8-year-old Ben, tumbled into the kitchen, bickering over who got the bigger stack. Upstairs, Helen and George, the kids' grandparents, started their day with the clink of teacups and the crackle of an old radio. Max, their golden Labrador, and Luna, their German Shepherd, dozed in a sunspot by the back door, their tails thumping lazily when Ben tossed them a glance. "Dad, your jokes are worse than your coffee," Emily groaned, dodging John's attempt to ruffle her hair as he quipped, "What do you call a dinosaur that takes care of its teeth?" "A flossiraptor." Sarah laughed, sliding a plate of pancakes to Ben, who was sneaking syrup onto his fingers. "You'll be a pancake by noon, kid," she teased, wiping his hands. Ellen, leaning on her cane, shuffled in, her knitting bag slung over her shoulder. "Morning, all." "John, your jokes haven't improved since '98, she said, her eyes twinkling. George, buried in his newspaper, grunted, "This crossword's cheating again." 7 letters, deceptive? HMPH. The family's laughter filled the kitchen, a warm bubble against the chilly May morning. Ben, tossing a crumb to Max, grinned. "Look, he's wagging like crazy." Max's tail swept the floor, his eyes flicking to Ben for a moment before settling back on his nap. Luna, stretched out nearby, lifted her head, her gaze lingering on Sarah as she chopped apples for lunchboxes. "Those dogs live better than us," Sarah said, smiling, not noticing Luna's stare, steady and unblinking. The moment passed, and the morning rolled on. John graded papers, Sarah packed lunches, and Emily sketched the family at the table, her pencil capturing Ben's sticky grin. Outside, Maple Street was waking up. Mrs. Larson, their neighbor, taped a flyer to a lamppost, her face creased with worry over her missing tabby, Whiskers. "Probably chasing mice," John called out, waving as he headed to his car. At home, the day unfolded predictably. Emily and Ben bickered over the TV remote, Ellen knitted a scarf, and George napped in his armchair, his snores a soft rhythm. Max and Luna stayed close, their presence as familiar as the creak of the floorboards, their occasional glances at the family unnoticed in the bustle of the day. Part 2, Cracks in the Quiet. Maple Street's calm began to fray, though the Thompsons barely noticed. By Friday, 2 more cats had vanished, and seeking flyers multiplying on lampposts. At the corner store, John overheard neighbors gossiping. "Could be a coyote," said Mr. Evans, the local handyman. "Or that weirdo Carl from down the street," another muttered, nodding toward Carl Grayson, a lanky, quiet man who lived alone and kept odd hours. "Saw him wandering near the woods last night, looked shifty." John frowned, adjusting his grip on Max and Luna's leashes as they tugged gently toward the trees, their tails wagging. "Just squirrels," he muttered, pulling them back to the sidewalk. At home, the routine held strong. Sarah, prepping for her night shift, hummed as she packed lunches, while Emily sketched in her notebook, capturing George's furrowed brow over his crossword. "You kids are too loud," he grumbled, though his eyes crinkled with amusement. Ben, sprawled on the couch, tossed a toy for Luna, who caught it mid-air, her eyes flicking to him with a quick, bright stare before she dropped it at his feet. "She's too smart," Ben laughed, and Emily rolled her eyes. "She just wants your snacks, dork." Sarah, pausing by the window, noticed Carl across the street, his coat flapping as he hurried toward his house. His head down. "He's always so jumpy," she said to John, who shrugged. "Guy's just shy. Let him be." That evening, Ellen told a story about her childhood dog, her voice soft as she knitted. "Loyal as anything, that one was," she said, not noticing Max nudge her leg gently, his nose brushing her knee. "Like our Max," she added, patting his head. George, lighting a cigar on the porch, caught Luna watching him from the yard, her head tilted, her tail giving a slow wag. "What's with you, girl?" he muttered, but she turned and trotted off, her silhouette blending into the dusk. The news mentioned a missing jogger, MIA Carter, last seen near the park. "Hope she's okay," Sarah said, locking the doors. John nodded, distracted, not noticing Max sitting by the TV, his eyes fixed on the screen as the reporter described a tall figure seen nearby, moving fast. Ben, playing in the yard, tossed a stick for Luna, who brought back a muddy sock instead. "Where'd you get that?" he asked, laughing, and ran inside to tell Emily, who added a quick sketch of Luna's proud prance to her notebook. Part 3: The Weight of Absence. The neighborhood's unease grew heavier. 5 cats were now missing, and Mrs. Larson's voice trembled as she spoke to Sarah. "Something's out there," she said, clutching a flyer. "I saw Carl near the woods again last night. He's always skulking." Sarah frowned, glancing at Carl's house, where the curtains twitched. "He's just odd," she said, trying to sound reassuring. At home, John helped Ben with math homework, joking, "What's the square root of trouble?" "You kid!" Ben groaned, tossing a pencil, which Max nudged back to him, his eyes bright and steady. "Good boy," Ben said, not noticing the dog's gaze linger. Emily's sketches filled her notebook, capturing the family's quirks, Sarah's flour-dusted apron, Ellen's cane tapping the floor. She drew Luna once, lounging by the fireplace, her eyes sharper than she'd meant. "She looks so serious," Emily said, showing Sarah, who laughed. "She's just begging for treats." But that night, Sarah woke to a soft thump downstairs, like a door creaking. She found nothing, but Luna was by the back door, her nose pressed to the glass, her tail still. "What's got you up?" Sarah whispered, her voice uneasy. The news grew darker. MIA Carter was still missing, and a witness claimed they'd seen a tall figure near the park, possibly Carl, given his late-night walks. "He's always out there," Mr. Evans told John at the store, his tone sharp. "Bet he's up to something." John shook his head, but doubt crept in. That evening, Ellen felt Max nudge her toward her chair, his push firmer than usual. "Easy, boy," she said, her smile thin. George, on the porch, saw Luna's silhouette in the yard, her head tilted as if listening to his muttering. "Go lie down," he said, but she stayed, her eyes catching the streetlight's glow. Part 4: Shadows Deepen. The news took a grim turn. A neighbor, Mr. Patel, was found dead in his garage, his throat torn, his body dragged toward the street. "Animal attack," the police said, but a witness swore they saw a tall figure, maybe Carl, running on 2 legs. A stray dog, bloodied and scared, was found nearby. "Poor thing saw it all," the reporter said. John, watching, locked the doors, saying, "This town's going crazy." Sarah nodded, her eyes flicking to Carl's house, where a light flickered late at night. At home, Max began fetching odd items, a spoon, a hairbrush, once Sarah's keys from a locked drawer. "How'd you do that, buddy?" she asked, laughing uneasily, but Max just wagged his tail, his stare fixed. Luna, meanwhile, paced at night, her claws clicking. Ben woke to her shadow in his doorway, tall and still for a moment before she dropped to all fours. "She's guarding me," he told Emily, who frowned, her latest sketch showing Luna with eyes too large. "It's just a drawing," she snapped when Sarah asked, hiding her notebook. Ellen complained that Max was hurting her too much, his nudges leaving her unsteady. His protective, George said, but he'd started locking the porch door after catching Luna standing there, swaying slightly. Sarah found a dead sparrow on the porch. Neatly placed. Max's work, she wondered aloud, but Luna's gaze from the yard made her shiver. At the store, Mr. Evans cornered John. "Carl was out again last night, near Patel's place. Tell me that's not suspicious." John frowned, glancing at Max and Luna, who sat calmly, their tails wagging slowly. Part 5, the laughter that wasn't. The air on Maple Street grew thick with unease, like a storm brewing just out of sight. The Thompsons tried to hold on to their routine, but cracks were spreading. Sarah, exhausted from a double shift, came home to find a knife missing from the kitchen block. "Ben, you playing pranks?" she called, half laughing, but Ben shook his head, engrossed in a video game. John, grading papers at the dining table, looked up. "Probably in the dishwasher, hun," but Sarah's search turned up nothing, and she didn't notice Luna watching her from the hallway, her eyes glinting in the dim light, her tail giving a slow, deliberate wag. Emily's sketches were piling up, her notebook now a gallery of family moments, John's lopsided grin, Ellen's knitted scarf, Ben's syrup-stained shirts. But her latest drawing of Max, lounging by the couch, showed his eyes too sharp, his mouth curved in a way that wasn't quite canine. "He looks creepy here," Ben said, peeking over her shoulder. Emily snapped the book shut. "It's just art, okay." But her hands trembled as she shoved it under her bed. That night, Ellen woke to a soft thud downstairs, like a cabinet closing. She shuffled to the stairs, her cane tapping, and saw Max at the bottom, his head tilted, staring up at her. "Go to bed, boy," she whispered, but his gaze held hers, unblinking, until she turned away. The news was relentless. A delivery driver, Tom Reed, was found dead in a ditch, his skin partially torn, as if something had tried to peel it off. The report showed a grainy security image of a tall figure in a loose coat, moving jerkily. "That's gotta be Carl," Mr. Evans told John at the store, his voice low. "Saw him near the park that night, acting all twitchy." John frowned, glancing at Carl's house, where the curtains were drawn tight. "Let's not jump to conclusions," he said, but doubt gnawed at him. At home, Sarah found a dead squirrel on the porch, its body neatly gutted, placed like a gift. "Max must have caught it," she said, but Luna's stare from the yard, steady and unyielding, made her stomach twist. George, smoking on the porch, caught Luna standing at the edge of the yard, her silhouette swaying for a moment before she dropped to all fours. "Trick of the light," he muttered, but his cigar trembled in his hand. He turned to John, who was fixing a squeaky door. "That Carl guy's trouble, you know. Always skulking." John sighed. "He's just a loner, Dad. Let it go." But as he spoke, Max nudged his leg, his nose cold and firm, as if urging him to listen. Part 6, The Vanishing Light. The neighborhood was unraveling. 7 cats were gone, and Mrs. Larson's sobs echoed as she taped up more flyers. "It's not just cats," she told Sarah, her eyes red. "Something's wrong here. I saw Carl by the woods again, carrying something heavy." Sarah's heart sank, picturing Carl's hunched figure. "Maybe he's just stressed," she offered weakly, but her voice lacked conviction. At home, the Thompsons clung to normalcy. John helped Emily with algebra, joking, "What's the angle of mischief?" 90 degrees. Emily groaned, but her smile was tight, her pencil sketching Luna's shadow, longer and sharper than it should be. Ben, playing in the yard, tossed a ball for Max, who brought back a muddy shoelace, neon pink, tangled with dirt. "Where'd you find that?" Ben asked, laughing, but Sarah froze when she saw it, remembering MIA Carter's missing poster with her neon running shoes. "Just trash," she said, tossing it out, her hand shaking. That night, Ben woke to Luna in his doorway, her silhouette tall and still, her eyes glowing in the dark. "You okay, girl?" he whispered, but she turned and padded away, her claws clicking too loudly. He told Emily the next morning, who frowned. "She's just being weird," she said, but her latest sketch showed Luna with hands, not paws, clutching a door frame. The news reported another body, a teenager from the next street, found with skin missing, as if someone, or something, had tried to wear it. A witness swore they saw Carl near the scene, his coat flapping. "He's dangerous," Mr. Evans hissed at the store, and John, uneasy, nodded slowly. At home, Ellen felt Max nudge her toward the basement stairs, his push so firm she stumbled. "Easy, boy," she gasped, gripping her cane, but his eyes, locked on hers, felt too knowing. George, watching TV, saw Luna sit by the screen during a report on the murders, her head cocked, as if listening. "Get out of the way," he grumbled, but she stayed, her tail still. Sarah, locking the doors, caught Carl outside, staring at their house from across the street. "John is creeping me out," she whispered. John sighed, pulling her close. "He's harmless, Sarah. Just weird." But as they turned away, Max and Luna sat by the window, their eyes fixed on the dark, their tails giving slow, synchronized wags. Part 7. The Breaking Point. The Thompsons' world began to splinter. Ben vanished one night, his room empty, his window open, blood speckling the sill. Sarah's scream woke the house, and John tore through the rooms, calling his name. They found Luna in the hallway, her muzzle wet and red, her eyes calm. "What did you see, girl?" Sarah sobbed, but Luna only tilted her head, her mouth curling slightly. The police searched the woods, finding a scrap of Ben's shirt, soaked in blood, and Max sitting nearby, his gaze steady. "He's just a dog," an officer said, but Sarah backed away, her eyes on Max's too wide grin, his stare unnervingly human. The news was a nightmare. More bodies, some mutilated, others draped in ill-fitting skin, as if something was trying to pass as human. Witnesses described figures speaking in garbled voices, always with a dog nearby. "It's Carl," Mr. Evans insisted, cornering John. "He's a killer, I'm telling you." John, shaken, didn't argue, but his mind flashed to Max and Luna, who now stood at the living room window, upright, their heads turning in unison to watch the family. Ellen, trembling, said Max had dragged her cane to the basement, his teeth marks deep. "He's helping," she whispered, but her voice broke. George, reloading his shotgun, confronted Carl outside, shouting, "What are you doing, skulking around?" Carl, pale and stammering, backed away. "I am not doing anything, I swear." But George fired a warning shot when Luna appeared behind him, standing on her hind legs, a low chuckle rumbling from her throat. She dodged and vanished, her laughter echoing. Emily, hiding in her room, heard the dogs mimic her family's voices, John's laugh, Sarah's hum, Ben's giggle, all wrong. Her sketches, now hidden, showed Max and Luna with human faces, their mouths open in screams. "They're not right," she whispered to Sarah, who held her tight, tears falling. Part 8. The Silent Street. Maple Street was a ghost town. The Thompsons barricaded themselves in, but Max and Luna were inside, pacing, their claws scraping the walls. Their voices called names in distorted tones: Sarah's, Emily's, Ellen's. George, gripping his shotgun, didn't see Luna behind him until she dragged him into the basement, her laughter a twisted mockery of his voice. By morning, he was gone, a bloody smear on the stairs. Sarah held Emily in the attic, whispering, "They're not our dogs anymore." The news blared, "Feral dogs or something worse. Stay indoors." Neighbors reported dogs standing upright, watching houses, their eyes glowing. Emily, the last survivor, clutched a knife, listening as Max and Luna scratched at the attic door, calling her name in voices that broke her heart. Her sketchbook, torn open, showed the dogs in human skin, their mouths stretched wide, laughing. Outside, the neighborhood was silent, save for the faint sound of claws on pavement, circling, waiting. The Thompsons' house stood dark, its windows empty, paw prints circling in the mud. No one spoke of them anymore, but at night, a low chuckle echoed, and eyes glowed in the dark, not canine, not human, but something else entirely, waiting for the next house to claim.